The storm had been raging for hours, battering the coastline with relentless fury. Adrian Reynolds stood at the broad windows of his cliffside home, watching lightning fracture the night sky. This was why he'd chosen this remote location, to witness nature's raw power while remaining safely distanced from the chaos of humanity. "Another perfect night to be alone," he muttered, raising his glass of whiskey in a mock toast to the tempest. Adrian had built his reputation as a brilliant architectural designer by creating spaces that harmonized with their environments. His own home was his masterpiece, a glass and sustainable timber structure that seemed to grow from the cliff itself. It was also his sanctuary, a place where the 34-year-old could escape the complications of human interaction that had always mystified him. A particularly violent flash of lightning illuminated something on the beach below that didn't belong, a pale form against the dark sand. Adrian squinted, setting his glass down abruptly when he realized it was a person. "Damn it," he growled, already pulling on his rain jacket. His isolation would have to wait. The path down to the beach was treacherous in the storm, but Adrian navigated it with the familiarity of someone who had walked it countless times in better weather. Rain pelted his face as he approached the figure lying motionless on the sand. It was a woman. Her skin was unusually pale with an almost luminescent quality, her hair a silvery blonde so light it appeared almost white against the dark beach. She wore a simple white shift dress that clung to her form, soaked through by the rain. No shoes, no coat, no identification, nothing that explained her presence on a private beach during a severe storm. Adrian checked for a pulse, relieved to find one, though it seemed to beat in an odd, syncopated rhythm unlike any heartbeat he'd felt before. "Hey," he called over the wind. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open briefly, startling eyes with irises so deep blue they were almost violet, with flecks that seemed to shimmer like distant stars. Then they closed again as she slipped back into unconsciousness. With no choice but to bring her to safety, Adrian lifted her surprisingly light form and began the difficult climb back up to his house. Once inside, he placed her gently on the couch, wrapping her in thermal blankets while the storm continued its assault outside. As he moved away to call for medical help, the lights flickered violently, and his phone displayed only static when he tried to use it. "Perfect," he muttered. The storm must have damaged the power lines and cell towers. They were cut off. As Adrian busied himself trying to restore communications, he failed to notice how the potted plants nearest to the unconscious woman had begun to grow at an impossible rate, their leaves stretching toward her as if drawn by an unseen force. It was nearly dawn when she finally stirred. Adrian had dozed off in a chair across from her, but jerked awake when she spoke. "Where am I?" Her voice was melodic with an accent he couldn't place. "My home," Adrian answered cautiously. "I found you unconscious on the beach. There's a medical center about 30 miles from here, but the storm knocked out communications. How do you feel?" She sat up slowly, those remarkable eyes taking in her surroundings with an intensity that made Adrian strangely uncomfortable. When her gaze finally settled on him, he felt a jolt of something pass between them. "I feel," she hesitated, displaced but unharmed. She extended her hand in what seemed like a studied gesture. "My name is Alara." Adrian took her hand and felt a slight tingling sensation pass up his arm. "Adrian Reynolds, do you remember what happened, how you ended up on my beach during a storm?" A slight frown creased her forehead. "I remember, falling then darkness." She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "I'm sorry, but everything before that is unclear." Adrian noticed a small cut on her forehead that hadn't been there earlier. Before he could mention it, Alara swayed slightly, clearly still weak. "You should rest," he said, standing abruptly to break the strange spell she seemed to cast over him. "You can stay here until the storm passes and we can get you proper help." As he moved toward the kitchen, the lights flickered again and the expensive coffee maker on the counter sparked dramatically before going dark. Adrian frowned. It was brand new. Behind him, Alara watched with what might have been guilt flashing across her otherworldly features. Outside, the storm had begun to subside, but another kind of tempest was just beginning in Adrian Reynolds' perfectly ordered life, one that would soon leave nothing unchanged. For the first time in years, Adrian wasn't alone. And despite all his instincts warning him about this mysterious woman, he couldn't deny the inexplicable pull he felt toward her, like gravity from a star he'd never known existed until now. 3 days had passed since Adrian found Alara on the beach, and still she remained in his home. The storm had cleared, communications had been restored, but something kept him from making that call to authorities. Perhaps it was the way she looked at the world with such wonder, or how her laughter seemed to brighten the room, literally, as he'd noticed the lights intensified whenever she was particularly happy. "This is extraordinary," Alara said, examining a simple houseplant with fascination. The way it converts light to energy, so inefficient yet so beautiful. Adrian looked up from his drafting table. Most people don't find photosynthesis that exciting. Most people take too much for granted, she replied, her starlit eyes meeting his. Something electric passed between them, causing the lamp beside Adrian to flicker briefly. He'd begun to notice these occurrences more frequently. Electronics behaving erratically in her presence, plants growing inches overnight, and most disturbingly, his neighbor Thomas calling in a panic about all his appliances failing simultaneously the day after Alara had walked past his property. "Are you going to tell me the truth soon?" Adrian asked, setting down his pencil. "About who you really are." Alara's face fell. "I wish I could remember everything. There are fragments falling through darkness, a mission of some kind." She touched her forehead where the strange cut had been, now completely healed without a trace. "I feel safe with you, that's all I know for certain." That evening they sat on Adrian's deck watching the sunset over the ocean. Their hands rested inches apart on the railing, and when Alara finally placed hers over his, Adrian felt that same tingling sensation shoot up his arm, but stronger now, pleasant and intoxicating. "Your heart rate increases when I touch you," she observed with clinical interest that somehow still felt intimate. "Mine does too, it's new to me." Adrian turned to face her, studying the otherworldly perfection of her features. "You're not from around here, are you? And I don't mean the next town over." Instead of answering, Alara leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, then deepened with unexpected intensity. Every light in Adrian's home blazed to full brightness behind them, though neither noticed. When they finally separated, Adrian felt lightheaded, euphoric. "I've wanted to do that since I first saw you," she whispered. That night, as they lay in separate rooms, Adrian was awakened by the sound of Alara crying out in her sleep. He rushed to the guest room to find her thrashing among sheets that appeared singed around the edges. "Alara," he called, gently shaking her shoulder. The moment he touched her, visions flooded his mind, stars viewed from impossible angles, a crystalline city beneath a purple sky, and overwhelming loneliness. She jerked awake, her eyes wide with panic. "I'm taking too much," she gasped. "I can't control it here." Before Adrian could question her further, his phone rang. His elderly neighbor, Mrs. Winters, was calling in hysterics. All the plants in her prized garden had withered overnight, as if something had drained the life from them. When he returned to the guest room after the call, he found Alara standing by the window, moonlight illuminating her silhouette. "It's happening again," she said without turning. "Wherever I go, destruction follows. I should leave before you get hurt too." Adrian approached slowly, turning her to face him. "Not until you tell me what you are." Her eyes glistened with tears that seemed to shimmer with their own light. "Would you believe me if I told you I come from a place where your sun is just another distant star?" Instead of the disbelief or fear she expected, Adrian simply brushed a tear from her cheek, feeling that now familiar energy pulse between them. "Actually," he said with a small smile, "that would explain quite a lot." Outside, unknown to both of them, a black government vehicle pulled up at the end of Adrian's driveway, its occupant studying energy readings that had been spiking in the area for days. The hunt had begun. Morning light filtered through the blinds as Adrian made coffee, his mind replaying Alara's confession from the night before. An alien. He'd actually kissed an alien. More surprisingly, he believed her. Too many inexplicable things had happened since her arrival for any other explanation. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Through the peephole, he saw a man in a dark suit holding up a badge. "Mr. Reynolds, Agent Dominic Fraser, Department of Energy Special Projects Division. I'd like to ask you about some unusual power fluctuations in this area." Adrian opened the door only partially. "Power fluctuations? You'd have to talk to the electric company about that." The agent's smile didn't reach his eyes. "These are rather specific anomalies. May I come in?" "Now's not a good time. I'm working on a deadline." Adrian blocked the view into his home, heart pounding against his ribs. "Of course, here's my card. Call if you notice anything unusual." The agent's gaze lingered a moment too long before he turned to leave. Adrian closed the door and leaned against it, finding Alara watching from the hallway, her expression grave. "They're looking for me," she said quietly. "They always find us eventually." "Us?" Adrian moved toward her. "There are more like you here." Alara sank onto the couch, her silvery hair falling forward to obscure her face. "My kind sends observers occasionally. We're drawn to worlds with abundant energy, but something about your planet's energy signature is incompatible with our biology. It makes us unstable, destructive despite our intentions." Adrian sat beside her, taking her hands in his. That familiar current flowed between them, but he no longer flinched from it. Is that what you are, an observer? She shook her head. Not exactly. I was pursuing a fugitive from my world, one who has been deliberately causing destruction here. My ship was damaged during entry into your atmosphere. The crash scattered my equipment and damaged my stabilizer. She touched a spot behind her ear. Without it, I involuntarily draw energy from my surroundings. That explains the electronics, the plants, Adrian's mind raced. But not why I feel this connection to you, this pull. Alara's gaze softened. My species forms energy bonds instinctively, rarely with other species though. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. You have an unusual energy signature for a human, complementary to mine in ways I've never experienced. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with invisible currents. Adrian leaned forward, capturing her lips with his. This time the energy that coursed between them was overwhelming, primal and consuming. Lights throughout the house surged and dimmed in rhythm with their passion. Alara broke away first, breathless. If we continue, I could harm you. I can't fully control the energy exchange. I don't care, Adrian whispered, drawing her back to him. Later, they lay tangled together on the couch, a faint glow emanating from Alara's skin wherever they touched. Adrian had never felt so alive, every nerve ending sensitized to her presence. I can help you, he said suddenly, ideas forming in his architect's mind. If your stabilizer regulates energy, I could design something similar. I've worked with sustainable energy systems. The principles might be adaptable. Alara looked at him with those impossible eyes. You would do that for me, even knowing what I am. Because of what you are, he corrected, kissing her forehead, and because of who you are. As evening approached, they spotted Agent Fraser's car parked down the road. They would need to move quickly. Alara retrieved a small crystal fragment from her hidden belongings, the only surviving piece of her technology. This contains the basic schematics for the stabilizer, she explained, but I can't read them properly without equipment. Adrian studied the crystal, which projected faint, incomprehensible diagrams when light passed through it. We'll need specialized tools. I have a friend who runs an engineering lab about 3 hours from here. We can trust her. As they prepared to leave under cover of darkness, Alara froze suddenly, her face contorted in pain. He's here, she gasped. The one I was pursuing, he's close and he knows I've found you. Adrian looked out the window to see the streetlights along his driveway exploding one by one, plunging them into darkness as a figure approached through the shadows, humanoid but moving with unnatural speed. We need to go, now, Adrian said, grabbing the crystal in Alara's hand. They slipped out the back door just as the front door burst open with force no human could have applied. As they fled into the night, Alara pulled Adrian close for a moment. If we survive this, I promise to show you the stars as you've never seen them before. Adrian's response was simple. When we survive this, I'll hold you to that promise. The headlights of Adrian's car cut through the night as they sped down coastal highways, the ocean a dark presence to their right. Alara watched the rearview mirror anxiously, her skin occasionally pulsing with a subtle glow when her emotions peaked. Who exactly is following us? Adrian asked, hands tight on the steering wheel. Another of your kind. Malachi, Alara said, the name sounding harsh and discordant in her melodious voice. A criminal on my world. He doesn't just absorb energy accidentally like I do, he harvests it deliberately, leaving destruction in his wake. He's been on your planet for months, causing what you call natural disasters. Adrian processed this, and you're some kind of space cop. A small smile touched Alara's lips. Energy Guardian would be closer, we protect the balance. Her expression darkened. Without my stabilizer, I'm not much better than him at the moment. Everything I touch risks damage. Not everything, Adrian said softly, reaching for her hand. That familiar current passed between them, but instead of pain, he felt invigorated. Whatever this is between us, it's different. They reached the small coastal city where Adrian's friend Vivian had her engineering lab shortly before dawn. The streets were quiet as they pulled into the industrial district and parked behind a modern building with quantum core solutions emblazoned on its glass doors. Vivian met them at the back entrance, her curious eyes taking in Alara's unusual appearance without comment. When you said urgent and confidential, I didn't expect you to bring a date, Adrian, she said dryly. It's complicated, he replied. We need specialized equipment and privacy, no questions asked. Inside the lab, Adrian spread out his designs, sketches of a device that could theoretically regulate Alara's energy absorption based on the crystal's projections. Vivian's eyebrows rose higher with each explanation, but true to her word, she asked no questions as she helped gather the necessary components. While the two humans worked, Alara stood by the window watching the sky lighten. When Adrian approached with a prototype, a sleek band designed to fit behind her ear, her eyes glistened with emotion. "You created this for me in hours," she said wonderingly. "Your species has such potential." The moment was interrupted by every light in the lab surging blindingly bright, before exploding in showers of sparks. "He's found us," Alara whispered. Adrian quickly placed the stabilizer behind Alara's ear. It adhered to her skin, glowing faintly as it activated. "Does it work?" Before she could answer, the lab's heavy security door crumpled inward. A man stood in the doorway, outwardly human except for eyes that glowed with an unnatural amber light. Malachi. "Hello, Guardian," he said, his voice eerily resonant. "You're a long way from home." Vivian backed away in shock as Adrian stepped protectively in front of Alara. "Get out," he demanded. Malachi laughed, the sound causing the remaining intact equipment to spark dangerously. "A human defender, how quaint." He gestured casually, and Adrian felt himself lifted and thrown against the far wall. Pain exploded in his shoulder as he collided with metal shelving. Through blurred vision, he saw Alara's expression transform from fear to fury. The stabilizer at her temple flickered as she raised her hand toward Malachi, pure energy arcing between them. "You've adapted," Malachi observed, deflecting her attack, "but you're still weak on this world." Their confrontation escalated, reality seeming to warp around them as they exchanged blasts of concentrated energy. Equipment melted, windows shattered, and the very air crackled with power. Adrian struggled to his feet, clutching his injured shoulder. The prototype stabilizer was failing. He could see it sputtering as Alara fought. Without it, she'd be as destructive as Malachi, unable to control her powers. Desperate, Adrian grabbed a modified power coupling they'd been working with, a device designed to channel and redirect energy. It wasn't meant for this level of power, but it was their only chance. During a brief pause in the energy battle, Adrian called out to Alara. When she turned, he tossed her the coupling. Understanding flashed in her eyes as she caught it. In one fluid motion, Alara integrated the coupling with her failing stabilizer and turned its full power toward Malachi. A blinding column of pure energy erupted between them, the force of it driving Malachi backward through the ruined doorway. For a moment, it seemed they had won. Then the coupling overloaded, the explosion throwing them all in different directions. Adrian's world went black momentarily. When consciousness returned, he found himself cradled in Alara's arms, her tears falling onto his face like droplets of starlight. "Adrian," she whispered, "stay with me." Through the haze of pain, he noticed something remarkable. The plants around them, rather than withering from her presence, were growing, blooming. Somehow, in that moment of crisis, Alara had transformed her energy from destructive to nurturing. "How will he manage to ask?" Her luminous eyes held his. "You," she said simply. "Somehow loving you has changed my energy signature. I'm adapting." Outside, sirens wailed, growing closer. Malachi was nowhere to be seen, but the destruction would bring authorities, including Agent Fraser. "We have to move," Vivian urged, helping them up. "There's a service tunnel that leads to the harbor." As they fled into the uncertain dawn, Adrian clasped Alara's hand tightly, feeling that familiar current between them, now a steady, healing warmth rather than a dangerous spark. Whatever came next, he knew with absolute certainty that he would never let her go. 3 weeks after the confrontation at Quantum Core, Adrian sat by a hospital window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades reminiscent of Alara's energy signature. His shoulder was healing well, but that wasn't why they remained in this secure facility nestled in the mountains. The door opened, and Agent Fraser entered with his usual measured steps. No longer an adversary, the government agent had become an unexpected ally after witnessing what happened at the harbor that fateful morning. "How is she?" Adrian asked immediately. "Stable," Fraser replied, "and remarkable. Our scientists are still trying to understand what she did with Malachi's energy." What Alara had done defied explanation, even by her own admission. Cornered at the harbor by Malachi, something fundamental had shifted within her. Rather than fighting energy with energy, she had absorbed his destructive force, transformed it, and channeled it into healing Adrian's injuries. The process had left Malachi weakened enough for Fraser's tactical team to contain him, but had also depleted Alara to the point of collapse. "Can I see her now?" Adrian asked. Fraser nodded, leading him down a corridor that looked more like a high-end research facility than a detention center. "She asked for you as soon as she regained consciousness." The room where Alara was recovering featured large windows overlooking a lush forest valley. She sat cross-legged on her bed, eyes closed in meditation, a soft glow emanating from her skin. The plants surrounding her bed had grown exponentially, creating a miniature jungle in the clinical space. She opened her eyes, those remarkable star-flecked violet eyes. The moment Adrian entered, a smile of pure joy transforming her features. Adrian, she breathed, extending her hands toward him. He crossed the room in rapid strides, gathering her into his arms, mindful of the monitoring equipment attached to her. The energy that passed between them now was gentle, harmonious, nothing like the dangerous current of their first encounters. "You've mastered it," he said with wonder, watching how the lights remained steady, how the plants thrived without being overstimulated. "Not mastered," she corrected, "found balance. Your scientists helped refine the stabilizer design, but the true change came from within." Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. "From what I found here with you." Fraser cleared his throat discreetly. "I'll give you two some privacy, but Alara, the director, will want to discuss your proposal in an hour." After he left, Adrian raised a questioning eyebrow. "Proposal?" Alara's expression grew serious. "I've been thinking about my purpose here. I came to capture Malachi, but perhaps there was a greater reason." She gestured toward the window. "Your world is in crisis, ecosystems failing, climate patterns destabilizing. What if my ability to transform energy could be part of the solution?" Adrian listened as she outlined what she had suggested to the government. A program to use her unique energy manipulation to restore damaged ecosystems, beginning with areas devastated by drought and wildfires. "They're actually considering it?" Adrian asked, amazed. "With conditions," Alara said, "supervision, restricted access, trust to be earned over time." Her gaze dropped. "It would mean staying here on Earth permanently." The implication hung between them. She would never return to her home world. Adrian took her hands in his, feeling the now familiar warmth flow between them. "And is that what you want?" Her eyes met his, unflinching. "My world sent me to protect the balance. I believe I can do more good here than anywhere else." A smile touched her lips. "And there are personal considerations." Adrian leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "I was hoping you'd say that." That evening, they stood together on the facility's observation deck, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Alara pointed out a particularly bright one. "My home sun," she said softly, "so distant now." Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Any regrets?" She turned in his embrace, her luminous skin casting them both in a gentle glow. "The universe is vast, Adrian Reynolds. My people believe that similar energies find each other across any distance." Her hands framed his face. "I crossed galaxies to find you. How could I regret that?" Their kiss deepened as the stars emerged fully overhead, witnesses to a love that defied planetary boundaries. The monitoring equipment nearby registered unusual energy patterns, but nothing destructive, only a perfect harmonic resonance between two different but complementary forms. 6 months later, a small cabin stood at the edge of what had once been a wildfire-ravaged forest. Now impossibly lush growth surrounded it, spreading outward in a perfect circle from the home Adrian had designed for them both, a living testament to Alara's presence. Inside, blueprint designs covered Adrian's desk, collaborative projects with the government's Environmental Restoration Initiative, energy-efficient structures designed to house Alara's transformative technology, allowing her to extend her healing influence to increasingly distant ecosystems. As sunset approached, Adrian found Alara in their garden, her bare feet connecting directly with the soil, eyes closed in concentration as energy flowed from her hands into a young sapling. When she opened her eyes to find him watching, her smile outshone the setting sun. "Still adapting?" he asked, their private joke. "Every day," she replied, stepping into his embrace. "Isn't that what life is, finding equilibrium between what we were and what we're becoming?" As twilight deepened around them, her skin began its subtle glow, no longer a sign of dangerous energy imbalance but a perfect expression of her true nature. The stars emerged overhead, looking down upon two beings who had found in each other the most unexpected and perfect balance in all the cosmos. Far above, a shooting star crossed the night sky, not a meteor, but a distant ship from Alara's world, perhaps carrying another observer. Whatever challenges it might bring could wait for tomorrow. Tonight belonged to them alone, two souls creating their own universe in each other's arms.